Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. During those times, I accumulated some good stories and some good insight related to prison. I'm going to share some with y'all today. If you like the video, be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe. Most importantly, hit that notification bell. That way, anytime I drop a story, you'll be notified ASAP Rocky, and you can hop on it whenever you're ready. Now, from time to time, people will leave comments in my comment section, and sometimes when I think they're real good, I'll respond in the form of a video. So I had a question posed to me by someone who goes by the name of Lovely Day. And what he asked me is this: do I think if I hadn't got life or hadn't got a bunch of time, would I be the same person that I am today? And the short answer is no. I'm going to answer the long answer, of course, obviously in this video. The reason why I believe that the answer is no is because, okay, first of all, let's start here. There's two types of sentences in California and probably some other states too, but a determinate sentence and an indeterminate sentence. An indeterminate sentence is when you sentence to life and you basically do not know when you're coming home. A determinate sentence is when you have a date, whether you're sentenced to 5 years, 10 years, 15, even 50 years, you at least have a confirmed date of when you are coming home. And the only thing you have to do to make that date is to stay alive. But the thing that I noticed in my experience is, and I'm speaking from a point of people who are gang affiliated or gang members. Most people who are gang affiliated and had determinate sentences, meaning that they knew when they was getting released, they had no incentive to try to better themselves. You know, when you thrown in that type of chaotic environment and you are around like-minded people, gang members, and you caught up in the daily confusion life of prison, hanging with the homies and doing this and doing that, you don't have a lot of people who try to change, because obviously if we saw something wrong with being gang members, we wouldn't be gang members from the get-go. But now, if you had an indeterminate sentence, meaning you didn't know when you was coming home, you had a life sentence, the board liked to see lifers come before them with chronos, and which meant that they had completed certain self-help groups. Now, when they initially started talking about changing prison and having self-help groups for the lifers and stuff, I was opposed to it, because I felt like, what could a book teach me that I didn't know about myself? But later on, once I started to take the classes, I began to embrace some of the things that was being taught. I realized that being in self-help was extremely helpful for me per se, because self-help in a nutshell is this: self-help is just about helping a person identify potential problematic areas in his life that need reshaping, need changing, and also give him some alternative solutions from the ones that he had been using that helped him get in the current situation that he found himself in. Like, for an example, gang members, former gang members, myself included, we felt that in order to go to certain maybe bars, clubs, parties, streets, neighborhoods, cities, we needed a gun. But now the alternative to that is, if this place is so dangerous that I need a gun to go, I'm just not going. And so it's just small things like that self-help helps us identify, and if we use and implement them in our daily life, then they'll definitely be helpful in keeping us out of the same problematic situations that landed us in prison. One of the things I believe that causes a lot of dudes to go back to jail is when they are released from prison. Unfortunately, some of them have to return to the same environment that they was at before. But if you return to the same environment with the same mindset, that's a potential problem, because now you're hanging with the same friends. Eventually, you're caught up in the same area. You're doing some of the same things that led you to prison the first time, and you may find yourself right back in prison. You know, doing a lot of time in prison, and especially California prisons, when the California prisons are divided a lot on racial lines. Many of us, myself included, once again, we found ourselves feeling entitled to a certain amount of respect. You know, in the California prisons, we have certain areas, water fountains, benches, handball courts that are designated for certain races only. Not only that, you know, you give a person this personal space. You know, you don't walk right up on a person and stuff like that. So if you do time like that over a period of time, many of us come to believe that we are entitled and we are owed that. And so unfortunately, when we get released, if you don't know how to differentiate between the two, that also could be problematic. Like, say you standing at Walmart, you looking at the beans or whatever. Somebody come and they reach over you to grab something and they don't say, excuse me. You may feel offended because you are used to living a particular lifestyle for so long. So if you happen to approach that person becomes rude. You may deal with that person violently in the same manner that you would if you were in prison. Then unfortunately, of course, you'll find yourself right back in prison. And so these are the things that I learned, right, when I was in prison and started taking these self-help classes. Like I said, had I not had a life sentence, had I knew when I was coming home, 100% no question, I wouldn't have took none of these self-help classes. I just wouldn't have. Then I would have got out and found myself caught up in the same predicament, possibly, right? And I know a lot of people out there thinking, well, damn, just doing that length of amount of time should change a person. But like I said, when you are around like-minded people, you are in a place where violence is not only accepted, it's expected in certain situations. You have sometimes no mirror. Basically, you have nothing pointing at yourself to show you that you went wrong and you're doing wrong in this situation. Because when you're violent in prison, many times you're given accolades, you know, people condone it. And so you see nothing wrong with the things that you're doing, you know. Case in point, right? I had a good homie of mine, and he's locked up right now. He's been down about 26, 27 years. He should be home off his life sentence in about 30 days, right? He happened to be in a cell with this other dude. Now, he said in the cell, this dude was extremely respectful. He said, man, this guy was respectful almost to the point where it was sickening. He'd say, you know, excuse me, at least 20 times a day in the cell. But what that dude basically was doing was showing him, hey, man, listen, I'm going to respect you. I'm going to be a respectful person. And people like that in prison can be extremely dangerous, because the second they feel they're not given the amount of respect that they're due, they're liable to go haywire, you know. And so this same particular dude that I'm talking about, after doing 17 years, he gets parole. Now, he didn't have a life sentence, so he was coming home, right? So after doing 17 years, he gets caught up in something, and he's charged. He eventually gets charged after being out maybe a year or two with committing three more murders. And I use that scenario to point out that just doing a long amount of time doesn't automatically guarantee change in a person. You know, a person has to be willing to basically analyze himself and evaluate the areas where he went wrong and the areas that needed correcting. And so me, like I said, I was a person who I felt that people should respect me because I'm gonna be respectful, you know. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, if a person disrespected me on a 3, then I felt I had every right to amp that up on a 10 and disrespect him 5 times even worse than he disrespected me. And so honestly, for me, getting a life sentence honestly was definitely a good thing, man. You know, I know it's an old cliche saying where people say that when you're in the streets, you're going to jail or you're going to wind up dead. And that's so true, you know. Me and a buddy was talking a couple of days ago. Me and a buddy who I used to work out with in prison, and we both, you know, had life and now we're free. And, you know, for whatever reason, both of us are fortunate enough to be here, to be alive, when so many of our friends did not survive through the chaos and the turmoil of you know, hanging out in the streets and stuff like that. And so with the way I was out there living, running wild, I was extremely reckless, you know, with a pistol. I was selling drugs. So it was definitely prison was in my future, you know, in some way, shape, or form. You know what I'm saying? It just all determined. It was just all, the only thing that was in question was how long, you know, and that's if I was fortunate enough to make it to prison, you know. So, doing time definitely, you know, especially getting a life sentence, it definitely helped me, change. It helped me realize, problematic areas in my life. Right. And so, honestly, being violent is not the hard part. You know, being violent is the easy part. The hard part sometimes is refraining from being violent. Because one of the things that I noticed upon returning to society is that it seems like now in this day and age, it is definitely the end thing to do to be disrespectful, to be rude, to respond in ways that will make the average criminal or the average person who's done prison time want to inflict bodily harm or try to get violent with you. But I realize that a lot of these people, while they will be initially disrespectful, the second you attempt to get violent with them, many of them want to call law enforcement and stuff like that. And so it just made me realize too that you know, prison and the streets are definitely two different entities. You know what I'm saying? Of course, gang banging, selling drugs, all that's a subculture. And while we're in prison, it may seem like many of us embrace that lifestyle. The fact of the matter is, it's an extremely, extremely, extremely small percentage who embrace that lifestyle on the streets. And it's even a smaller percentage who are really going to stick to that street code. You know, I'm really starting to think now in this day and age that the street code is 100% non-existent, right? But so yeah, for me, getting all that time definitely was a turning point in my life and making me see things different, right? Because through the course of the self-help classes that I took, it also taught me to evaluate my thoughts and do things that I wouldn't have done had I not been in them classes. You know what I'm saying? And so it's nothing like being free. But yeah, so for me, taking those classes, going to prison, getting that long sentence, definitely changed the person that I was. And I don't think that I would be the person that I am today had I not got all that time, you know. So anyway, that was a good question. Thanks, Lovely Day, once again. You already know what it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.